Paladins has over 17 characters, a handful of maps, and the option to play 5-on-5 in either ranked or casual matchmaking. The combat doesn't have the sense of physicality that I want in a multiplayer FPS. The maps are simple, in terms of art and layout. One of my main complaints is how strategically shallow Paladins feels so far. That's all on the surface. But the true depth to Paladins lies underneath. Unlike most hero games, here you're not completely pigeonholed into a specific role by your choice of character, because you can customize them so heavily. Every player picks 5 out of 16 cards to create a preset loadout tailored to the champion you choose that enhances stats and moves during a match. Beyond that, every match begins with yet another set of options, allowing you to pick 1 out of 4 champion-specific talents that will dramatically change the way that character plays. Cassie, for instance, is a damaged champion who wields a crossbow and generally works great from a farther distance. But this can all swiftly change with the swap of a talent. For a match where the central point looks to be hectic, it might make sense to pick her. Talent that increases damage output based on distance. Does the other team have a few flanks that need to be stopped? Focusing a card deck and talent on her dodge roll ability can switch her sniper archetype to one where mobility reigns supreme. Alternatively, the humanoid tree Grover is a support healer by default, but applying his ferocity talent greatly increases the damage of his axe throws and aligns him closer to a damaged champion. Siege is Paladin's main mode, where teams work to capture the central point and then lead a payload to the end of the map. This mode works well because it constantly promotes teamwork. Each mode is able to stay fresh and interesting thanks to over 16 maps that are tactically compatible with their assigned game mode. As a free-to-play game, it's always a concern that microtransactions could cause a feeling of unfairness. But Paladins keeps things on the level by not offering any competitive advantage for sale. Gold currency is earned by playing matches and completing quests, and using it to buy locked champions gives you a decent window of time to master a character as you save up for the next purchase. Of course, the entire selection of characters is available for purchase in a pack, and many cool outfits and other cosmetics can be purchased individually, so you're not left waiting for the item you want to drop from a loot box. Though you can buy a loot box for a cheaper price if you don't mind sifting through a handful of emotes and sprays. That's fine. But it's disappointing that some of the most impressive outfits can't be purchased outright and are locked behind a chest. Best described as a modernization of Quake 3's multiplayer. Quake Champions updates the fast-paced, intense fragging of the 1999 classic with a brand new engine, adds a sprinkling of character-based mechanics into the proceedings, and then surrounds the whole thing with a free-to-play structure. The beta itself comprised 3 maps and 3 modes, the traditional deathmatch and team deathmatch, along with a new mode called Duel. The core of Quake Champions is supremely well-balanced, with each of its redesigned guns offering just the right amount of risk and reward when wielded. Weapons like the machine gun and lightning gun chip constantly away at enemy health, but require sustained focus in order to actually kill. The shotgun and railgun, meanwhile, will put a big dent in your opponent's health bar, but have a delay between shots that seems agonizingly long in Quake's atomic measurement of time. Quake Champions' character-driven multiplayer is unashamedly inspired by the likes of Team Fortress 2 and Overwatch. Although each champion's unique traits are neither as interesting nor as crucial to the overall design as is the case with those games. This is undoubtedly the right approach. Their differing attributes and abilities are sufficient to spice up champions' more traditional multiplayer offering without fundamentally altering the direction of the game. When it all comes together, Quake Champions is an absolute blast, especially in standard deathmatch. It's a constant, breathless rush of semi-conscious decisions that have an unseen yet vital impact upon your success or failure. The free-to-play model in Quake Champions is a little bit unusual compared to other well-known games in this genre. This game locks away all the champions, unless you rent them for 24 hours, using points earned in battle, or purchase them outright with real-life money. The game should be about learning each of these champions and picking your favorites, not fighting just to unlock its main new feature. Other F2P games have shown that players will happily spend money on cosmetic items in games they like, and I think locking out the champions in this manner is more likely to put off potential players than encourage them to join in. Destiny 2 is a blast out of the gate, thanks to its excellent co-op shooter gameplay and the strong storytelling in the campaign. One of the best things about Destiny 2 is its incredibly strong PvE content and top-tier gunplay that's second only to the most formidable shooters out there. Coming off the heels of a very well-received expansion in The Witch Queen, there's a lot to love about the game's over-the-top combat, where you'll be shooting aliens in the face one moment and running around with a giant flaming hammer the next. The endgame activities that make themselves available once your Guardian has been properly leveled are especially worth playing. Raids and dungeons have always been and continue to be the best way to spend one's time in Destiny 2, even if raid content increasingly relies on re-releasing raids from the previous game. The current PvP landscape is in the worst state it's ever been, with few game modes, cheaters on PC, a sandbox that is unwelcome to new players without the best gear, and only few new maps added to the playlist in recent years. It's very difficult to find reasons to grind out any of Destiny 2's PvP playlists. There's really not much more to say here, mostly because Bungie seems to pay so little attention to this pillar of the game these days, and that breaks this sweaty tryhard's heart. The casual player found the entire experience obtuse as imaginable, and was overwhelmed by the unfathomable number of currencies to manage and activities to tackle. And since he didn't have a group of friends to show them the ropes, he was left twisting in the wind with no good options to figure out basic things, like the ins and outs of weapon crafting, or which things he should be spending his time on. One of the biggest knocks against Destiny 2 at the moment is its absolutely unacceptable monetization model, or more accurately, its 7 monetization models. Quite simply, Destiny 2 blends a hodgepodge of monetization models that's not only confusing, but quite literally never stops asking you for money, creating an incredibly incomplete experience for those who don't shell out for the goods. Destiny 2 charges for mainline expansions like Lightfall, for seasonal content every 3 months, for Season Pass XP if you want to skip the grind, for cosmetics if you want your character or gear to look cool, for transmog if you want that cool gear to be available on your best armor, for 3-player dungeon activities that it sells piecemeal, and for event cards that are essential for those who want to participate in seasonal limited-time events, like the upcoming Festival of the Lost. Most live service games like Warframe or Genshin Impact offset their microtransaction model by making the base game free. But while Destiny 2 has flirted with the idea in the past, they currently have one of the most ruthless walled gardens in gaming that acts like a premium game on one hand, charging full price for expansions, then is brimming with microtransactions every time you so much as wipe your nose after you've paid your way. Warframe is a free-to-play action RPG third-person shooter, where you play as the Tenno, a race of warriors that have found themselves in the middle of a war between the 3 factions of the galactic system. There are hundreds of Warframes and weapons to build, missions to complete, and enemies to kill. If you're interested in Warframe but unsure if you should give it a shot, we've got you covered. Below, we'll take a look at some key points about the game, and if it's worth it to get started. Warframe is a session-based action RPG shooter. Missions take place on one of the galaxy's several planets, with each planet featuring several different locations and mission types, such as survival, excavation, and capture. There are over 50 Warframes to build and fight with, each with its own set of powers and abilities. Most of the Warframes also have Prime versions. These are powered-up versions with increased capabilities. Warframes must be built in your ship's foundry using resources and blueprints, sourced from various bosses, missions, and quests. Warframe's gameplay is often described as a ninja game in space. Warframe's combat is fast-paced and fluid, with players able to parkour their way around the environment as they fight. Warframe has a lot to offer. There are dozens of Warframes to choose from, each with its own unique abilities and playstyle. In PvP, players can compete against each other in Warframe's competitive multiplayer mode, Conclave, or Duels. Warframe is a nearly endless game, with thousands of hours of content. There are main quests to proceed through, unlocking the game's main locations. But the majority of the time spent in the game will be farming resources and items in its various missions. Warframe is entirely free to play. You can download and play the entire game for free right now. There are microtransactions present in the game, purchased through the premium currency. Warframe certainly has some pay-to-win elements. In the Platinum Shop, you can buy new Warframes, weapons, and several items that are time-gated. So buying them in the store will speed up your progress and give you an advantage. Even with some pay-to-win elements, Warframe is still a great game and is worth playing. As a free player, you can still progress and unlock everything in the game without spending a dime. Valve's free-to-play Team Fortress 2 is now over a decade old, an eternity in terms of video game development. But TF2's basic gameplay structure remains surprisingly relevant. Many modern PC games, and especially those of the team-based first-person shooter genre, have since improved on TF2's formula by streamlining gameplay and offering more impressive visuals, thus creating more compelling reasons to return match after match. Still, the shooter remains popular among those who can appreciate its retro charms. Matches are mainly broken down into casual and competitive affairs, with additional options for man versus machine, a 6-player versus environment match type, community servers, and training exercises. Core game modes include all the classics you might expect, such as attack and defense, capture the flag, control points, king of the hill, and payload. For this review, I spent most of my time in control points and payload matches, in which you respectively fight to control several points on the map and try to advance a cart into enemy territory before time runs out. You select a character after you join a match and can switch at any point during a respawn. TF2's cast of 9 playable characters breaks down into 3 classes: offense, defense, and support. In casual matches, teams are typically made up of 12 players each, which makes it difficult to coordinate and keep track of everyone else's movements. There are no limits on the number of players who can play a given class in casual matches either, which can lead to team imbalance. The result is more chaotic gameplay than other titles. That said, in the matches I played, some basic strategies emerged. For example, medics and engineers tended to congregate around areas of high value, such as control points or the payload. Competitive modes feature smaller team sizes and class limits, however, which should encourage more teamwork. If you prefer more balanced team compositions, then Overwatch's role queue feature may be something you enjoy. Other players might hate not being able to swap out to a different class. Say if your teammates with damage class characters can't break through a map's choke point. Team Fortress 2 is a free-to-play game. However, players have the option to upgrade to premium TF2 accounts by making any purchase in the game's virtual shop. Premium users get 300 backpack slots for storing items. Free accounts only get 50. Access to all item types, and full crafting, trading, and gifting capabilities. Everything else is the same between the 2 account types. Progression in TF2 is similar to that of other multiplayer games. You earn points for performing well in matches, and your rank increases after you earn a certain number of points. Comparing TF2 to Fortnite, Overwatch, and Valorant is not exactly fair, given the time gap between the releases of these titles. But the stark difference is indicative of how much progress has been made over the last decade or so of video games. The visual direction of TF2 is not bad, but rather underwhelming compared to modern standards. While this doesn't affect the core gameplay, it does make the game somewhat less engrossing. The Finals is a team-based first-person shooter, with an emphasis on destruction and mayhem. One key difference between the Finals and most other competitive shooters is that it pits multiple teams of 3 players against each other in 3 versus 3 matches with up to 4 teams. This multi-team setup leads to a consistent stream of dynamic firefights, as each squad vies for control of the Finals' all-important cash. You end up fighting the defending team as they desperately try to hold on, while also scrapping with your fellow attackers, contributing to the game's palpable sense of outright bedlam. It's a vibrant and colorful shooter, too, augmenting its over-the-top action with a game show-infused style, featuring a rambunctious crowd and excitable play-by-play announcers. There are currently 2 main modes to facilitate all of this chaos. Quick Cash sees 3 teams battling for possession of a vault filled with money, which must then be taken to a designated cash-out station to be deposited. It's kind of like a mixture between Capture the Flag and King of the Hill, typically resulting in all 3 squads converging on one location for an all-out slaughter. Bank It is the Finals' other game mode, focusing more on straight-up combat than Quick Cash does. There are still vaults you can bust into to quickly accrue a load of cash, but every player also begins each life with money already in their virtual pockets. Each time you die, this money drops to the floor for anyone to pick up. Whether you're carrying the money you started with or stocked up on cash after breaking into a vault and robbing other players of theirs. The idea is to deposit this cash before potentially dying and losing it all. So you have to consider when to go for more kills and when to break away and bank your loot before it goes to waste. Say all of the weapons and gadgets you can take into a match are solidly varied, but earning the in-game cash you need to unlock them is a drawn-out experience that saps away the satisfaction you ideally want from a progression system. Like most other free-to-play shooters, the Finals also features a battle pass containing a litany of cosmetic items. The best you can hope for without spending any money is a bucket hat and fanny pack. But nothing restricted to the paid battle pass or other premium cosmetics offers a competitive advantage, so there aren't any pay-to-win options. The Finals stands out amongst its contemporaries thanks to its thrilling destruction, fast-paced gunplay, and anomalous approach to familiar objectives. There are some balancing issues to iron out. Its progression system needs expediting, and there are too few maps. But these flaws are ultimately minor when you're in the thick of the action, with explosions and gunfire echoing all around you. The Finals is an absurdly fun shooter, with the potential to grow. After the initial controversy about the game's phone number requirement and the shutdown of the original Overwatch, players started to point out issues with the actual game. These range from some major bugs that have since been fixed to pricey cosmetics and a lack of progression, which remain a problem. Despite this, the hero shooter going free-to-play does seem to be the right decision based on Overwatch 2's impressive player count milestone. Overwatch is a team-based, hero-based, multiplayer competitive shooter. Heroes, maps, and game modes are all designed to require teams to work together in order to successfully win a match. When a team works together, each player using their hero to their fullest potential while relying on each other to execute a strategy, the game feels magical. There's really no other FPS like it. However, when this isn't happening and players are all working on their own, the game is far from magical and can become frustrating. The reliance on teammates can simultaneously be one of the best and worst attributes of our game. Its sheer variety in character design across its 35 heroes, the ways in which they each feel unique to control, and the charm bursting from every seam remain clear to see. Everybody's weapons still feel fantastic to wield, and a full pass to the sounds they produce and a slight visual glow-up only add to the empowering joy of battle. Its highs and lows, from the delight of those last-second tactical switch-ups to the agony of a teammate refusing to step onto the objective at a crucial moment, have yet to be fully replicated by any game since. Outside of the fact that Overwatch 2 is a free-to-play game, by far the biggest shakeup that comes with the sequel is the move from its traditional 6v6 matches to a smaller 5v5 format. It's just 2 fewer players in the arena, but it represents a huge ideological shift in which tangible repercussions are immediately felt. Beyond the shift to 5v5, a big addition to the sequel is the introduction of a brand new mode. Push. It's essentially a game of tug-of-war, with a Baymax-like robot pushing a barrier through a map on behalf of whichever team is closest to him. It's a bit like Overwatch's signature escort mode, but here each team is trying to push the robot to the other team's spawn point, rather than one team permanently defending and one attacking for the whole match. It does a great job of centralizing the fight, with both teams focusing on a shared objective. Halo Infinite multiplayer offers tight 4v4 matches and more chaotic 12v12 big team battle on expertly designed maps. Halo Infinite revives and reinvigorates the glorious sci-fi action that once made Halo king among multiplayer FPS games. Riding high on that thrill, Halo Infinite's multiplayer has dash-slid into the first-person shooter scene and meleeed the competition off the map. Halo Infinite does a stand-up job of bringing novices up to speed with its Academy mode, in which you can try out different weapon drills or jump into a training session against bots with customizable match settings. Training mode allows you to try out different power items, such as active camouflage and the grappling hook, that you may not have been able to get hold of much in PvP matches, and it also helps you learn the maps as you explore at your own pace. You can also join matches against bots if you want to test your skills before facing other players, and these are some of the most human-like bots in shooter games you will face. When you will go up against real opponents, the intimate 4v4 arena playlist's fast-paced matches will hook you immediately. There are 5 game modes. 1 flag, capture the flag, strongholds, oddball, and slayer. Slayer is the traditional team deathmatch. Strongholds has teams fighting to control 3 capture points on the map. And in oddball, you're battling over control of a skull. While they aren't revolutionary, they're undoubtedly fun and infinitely replayable, and have formed the basis of some of the most enjoyable multiplayer arena shooters of all time. The only unconventional mode in that list, 1 flag CTF, where each round has one team defending a flag and the other team has to capture that flag. All of these game modes are excellent, and much more so when you're communicating with your teammates. A big part of the reason Infinite's matches work so well is that each of the 7 maps for arena matches are incredibly well designed to allow for you and your team to fluidly rotate through them, grabbing key weapons and items as they spawn and sweeping out enemies. Even with big team battle, the 3 maps are evenly balanced for 12v12 matches. Halo Infinite has been one of the most anticipated games out there since it was first announced, and for its multiplayer component to so fully deliver on the series' classic feel, while also keeping up with the modern-day competition in the FPS genre, is a huge achievement. With some fantastic map design, a collection of straightforward but highly engaging modes for both large and small groups, excellent weapons and gear options, and those delightfully bouncy and sticky grenades. Halo Infinite's multiplayer modes put it in the top tier of competitive shooters. Impressively, it manages to give nostalgic veterans the best of what they remember. Halo multiplayer feeling like, while also smoothly introducing new players to the joys of shooter combat. Valorant is a character-based tactical shooter, and many FPS fans might be wondering if the title is worth playing in 2024. Since its release, this game has gone through several changes, most of which have been considered positive by large parts of the community. For starters, I feel like Riot Games has nailed the balance between utility and gunplay aspects of the game to a large extent. The fact that every player has access to the same weaponry ensures an even playing field, irrespective of one's playstyle. This sets the title apart from utility-heavy games like Overwatch. On the other side, the presence of various kinds of agents and their varied utility kits adds a lot of complexity and strategic depth to this title. While other shooters are lacking in terms of strategic gaming, The sheer number of permutations and combinations available in Valorant makes it one of a kind in the tactical FPS genre. Teams take turns as either the attackers or defenders in a best of 25 rounds. Attackers carry the spike, a bomb, to one of several designated bomb sites on Valorant's 3 finely tuned maps, plant that sucker, and hopefully blow everyone sky high. Meanwhile, the defenders must thwart the attackers' exploding ambitions by defusing the spike once it's planted, or stopping the plant altogether. Of course, you could also just mow down the enemy team to secure victory, whatever works. The back-and-forth race to that coveted 13th victory is as pulse-pounding as it is gratifying. Valorant balances ults by making them cost points instead of attaching them to a cooldown timer. You gain these points by dying, collecting static resource nodes, and most importantly, killing opponents. Burning an ultimate means drying up yet another precious resource. Thankfully, no matter who you're playing with, all the dazzling magic in the world won't carry the team if you can't aim well. Each of the 17 guns at your disposal in Valorant has an elaborate and unique recoil pattern. The flexibility of its magically infused cast, paired with a deep arsenal, makes for a magnificent competitive canvas. If a tricky one to initially pick up, it may not be the prettiest modern FPS around, but its visual simplicity enables excellent clarity in every fight. Valorant is free to play with a wealth of cosmetics to unlock, but most are only attainable by swiping your credit card. Stuff like gun skins, spray paint tags, stylized particle effects for gunfire, finishers, alternative sound effects for weapons, and little decorative gun charms, called buddies, are all available via the in-game store. You'll need to buy Valorant points, an in-game currency only obtainable with real money, for the best goodies in particular. Not all of the cosmetics require real money thanks to the Battle Pass. It contains all kinds of unique items like those mentioned above, and everyone gets access to the base version of it for free. The formula hasn't really changed since the 1999 original. Terrorists and counter-terrorists sparring to eliminate the other side, or plant and defuse a bomb at one of 2 designated locations. Fundamentally, though, the core combination of tactical, round-based 5v5 competition and satisfyingly difficult shooting mechanics remain as enrapturing and enraging as ever. Competitive play is at the heart of the game, even more so than in CS:GO, with the premier ranked mode taking center stage. Here, solo and grouped players are placed into teams of 5. Go through a map veto process to select the stage and starting sides. Then compete in a best of 24 rounds match with their individual EALO rating on the line. These matches are a good deal shorter than CS:GO's best of 30 contests, increasing the importance of the first rounds on each side and making it a little harder to stage a late comeback. In both ranked and premier, short and long matches have been scrapped in favor of MR12, 12 max rounds, striking a nice balance between the two options. Counter-Strike has never been the prettiest game, but for the first time, CS2 genuinely rivals its competitors from a visual standpoint. Maps like Inferno and Anubis already looked great in CS:GO, and now they stand out in CS2 by taking full advantage of the graphical benefits Source 2 has to offer. There's something special about CS2 that, despite all of its flaws, is still capable of producing unrivaled gaming experiences, whether it's defying all odds to win a difficult round, or staging a comeback when it looks like all hope is lost. It's moments like these that place CS2 into a league of its own. Valve has improved the Counter-Strike formula with the release of CS2, and it's clear that things are only going to get better from here.